We talked about why there are optimistic Florida Gators fans, and, well, there's still reasons to be pessimistic here.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully, not the only time you'll see me today. Wink, wink. I am Brandon Olsen, very gracious to be your host, lifetime Florida Gators fan here. I'm on Twitter, WNS_Brandon. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And like I said, on I think it was Monday's show, we talked about why there are reasons to be optimistic about the Florida Gators. But there's still, I have said plenty of reasons. There's still reasons to be pessimistic here. And I need to make this absolutely clear. I don't think of myself as someone that is full in on the optimism. I don't think of myself as someone that's full in on the pessimism. I think of myself somewhere in the middle of I'm cautiously optimistic. And I say that because I think that that's where most Florida Gators fans should be, is the cautiously optimistic area. Because on paper, in theory, in practice, in process, in method, whatever you want to call it, the Florida Gators made improvements this offseason to their coaching staff, to their roster. They made improvements. But if you're a first-time listener, welcome. If you're an everydayer, you know the approach that we take here on Locked On Gators is when you have expectations for a group, whether it's a position group, just a group of people, players, recruits, coaches, whatever it is, just know not everybody's going to reach those expectations. And so while we can talk about all the reasons to be optimistic, realistically, not everybody's going to reach those. And I said this on yesterday's episode of Locked On College Football. I joined Spencer McLaughlin there, and we were talking about the Florida Gators Miami game. And I was saying, when you have expectations for large groups, you kind of go 10% is going to exceed those or reach those comfortably. 10% is probably going to fail miserably. And 80% is probably going to fall somewhere in the middle. It might be 15, 70, whatever it is. But a large portion is not going to necessarily reach those expectations. They're going to be somewhere in the middle of reaching and failing those expectations. And so that's where I fall with cautiously optimistic. On paper, the Florida Gators did a really good job of addressing a lot of needs and a lot of failures. But there's still some things there, like Billy Napier, go right to the head of the program there. As in the public head of the program. I know there's an AD and president and all that stuff, and even a GM now. But the main head of the program is Billy Napier. He's going to take the flack and the celebration if he does things right? And we've seen 2 years now of coaching shortcomings that make people say, including myself, Eddie, you know this one, hey, I gotta see it. Because as fun as it is to give people the benefit of the doubt, giving someone the benefit of the doubt is how you set yourself up for disappointment. What I'm talking about here is look at the road games under Billy Napier. The Florida Gators, road games under Billy Napier in 2022 went 1-3 on the road. In 2022. 0-2 in neutral site games. They had 2 neutral site games in 2022 because they had the Georgia game, which is always neutral site. And they made the Las Vegas Bowl where they got smoked by Oregon State. And sure, you could chalk that up to they had quite a few people opt out and whatever it is. Sure, I guess, sure, chalk it up to that. But you still got smoked and you looked bad doing it. Okay? Like you didn't just look like, oh yeah, it's their backups. You looked like you didn't know what the hell was going on at any point. 2023, 1-4 on the road. Only win was South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So 1-4 on the road. 0-1 at neutral sites in 2023. Because the only neutral site game you played was Georgia. So all this to say, when you're not playing at home, you're not playing well, right? Like they've played 25 games under Billy Napier because they had 12-12 and a bowl game in one of those. So 25 games under Billy Napier. They had 12 of them not at home, and they've won 2 of those. That ain't good, right? That ain't good. So it's not awesome there. Then you could talk about not even just being on the road. You could talk about some specific games. You went on the road and Vanderbilt caught you sleeping in 2022. That was ugly. But Kentucky, you've played them twice under Billy Napier. You lost both of those. One at home, one on the road. And how do I put this? Absolutely hideous, disgusting performances in both of them. Both of them. I like to say, and I say this quite a bit, never argue with an idiot, because an idiot will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. I liken that to Kentucky. I'm not saying everybody in Kentucky is idiots, but I am saying that Kentucky as a program is not this high-ranking program that's super successful all the time. No, and their brand of football is what I'm talking about when I say that. Their brand of football is, hey, we're going to take you to deep water. We're going to take you to wherever, whatever you want to say about it. We're going to drag you down to this ugly, muddy, disgusting level of football. And when you get down to that level, we're going to kick the crap out of you because that's what we do. That's what we want. We want this to be a barroom brawl. We want this to be just fight and bloody and nasty. And Kentucky does that. But here's the thing. Going into a matchup against Kentucky, that's what Kentucky wants to do. You have to be able to answer that. Because you look at what Kentucky did, let's pull up the Kentucky game from 2023. And I harp on this so much because it was such a bad, ugly football game for Florida. Just you looked horrendous. You looked like you didn't belong there. Ray Davis in that Kentucky game had 26 carries, 280 yards, 10.8 yards per carry. He never averaged 10.8 yards per carry. He never had another 3-touchdown game. And on top of that, he only hit 100 yards one time after that. Once. That was the only other game he hit 100 yards after that. Okay? It was against Missouri. So good team, right? But you look at Georgia, under 4 yards per carry. That's Georgia. Tennessee, under 3 yards per carry. Mississippi State, under 4 yards per carry. Alabama, under 2.5 yards per carry. And they pummeled you for almost 11 yards per carry, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. He went over 150 yards one time that season. It was against Florida. And they ran the same crap. It's the Todd Grantham LSU game. They ran the same crap against you, and it worked because your coaching didn't adjust. You didn't take players out and put in players that were better suited to handle that. Nothing. And then throughout the season, just brain dead penalties and special teams mistakes. 2 number 3s on the field on punt return. Burning 2 timeouts against Arkansas. You ended the season on a 5-game losing streak in 2023, including a loss to a very bad Arkansas team in Gainesville with a litany of coaching errors. The burning 2 timeouts on one drive, and then late in the game, getting the illegal substitution penalty because you didn't have those timeouts to use. When you could have kicked the field goal there, you gave yourself the penalty to put it to, I think it was 42 or 43 yards, and Trace Mack missed the kick. And sure, it was a makeable kick, but he didn't miss under 40 the entire season, and he missed it over 40 because of that. You had it under 40 there. You had it under 40. It was a beautiful day. I was there. I got a nice tan. It was a beautiful day out there. Missed it because you got the penalty and it kicked it past 40 yards. And yeah, kind of screwed it there. And I'm not saying that he can't kick a 40-yard field goal. I agree he should have made that kick. However, he should have never been put in that position because your coaching should have been better. The second in the Kentucky game, Jalen Kimber ran into the pile with his head down, and there was a long run for Kentucky. He should have been taken out of that game. He should have. There were multiple times where the coaching staff could have made changes and didn't. And that is one of the biggest reasons. That is the biggest reason to be pessimistic, if you're going to be pessimistic. And it is one of the biggest reasons that I hesitate to go all in on what this team can do. Because as much as I want to believe that, we're still talking about a team that did all of this, coaching-wise. You can improve the roster, but if your coaching doesn't improve, buddy, schedule the movers because it might be time. Again, I'm not saying that I don't think they can turn things around, but it's a big reason to be pessimistic that while you can add players to the portal, high school recruiting, whatever it is, you still have the same head coach, play caller on both sides of the ball that made a lot of the mistakes that this team made in 2023. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets or any tickets. I can tell you this. I have completely eliminated any other resource when it comes to buying tickets. And this is a summer of concerts for me. I went to see Anita perform earlier this month. Fantastic show. Fantastic. It was her last show in the U.S. It was awesome. Bought them on Game Time. Not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, July 6th, I'm going to go see Shabuzi perform. Bought them on Game Time. July 23rd, in a few Tuesdays, I'm going to go see that Mexican OT perform. Game Time. I'm just saying, I put my money where my mouth is. I use Game Time exclusively now. Been to Mets games, Gators games. It's what I do. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And in the spirit of just talking about why there are pessimistic Florida Gators fans and why I do think it's deserved in some areas, the players that you lost in the transfer portal. And I know that for most of us, we can look at those players and chalk it up. But like some of the key players that you lost were Princely Monmielen, Trevor Etienne, Chris McClellan, Jaden Hill, Richie Leonard IV, Scooby Williams, Jalen Kimber, Micah Mazuka, Ethan Pouncey left as well. I think that for the Florida Gators fans that are pessimistic, and that's one of the reasons, it's not necessarily that you go, oh my God, those players were so exceptional at everything they did. I think that a lot of people look at it more as most teams don't lose that many guys that were key contributors, right? Most teams just don't lose that many key contributors. A lot of the guys that hit the portal are, depth pieces that weren't going to get playing time. Their position coach left, so they hit the portal, do whatever. I think that's what it is. And so I think some people see those departures and think, hey, something wrong. But I'll say, just off the list that I read, a good deal of those departures, a good deal of those losses aren't actual losses because they weren't quality players that left. I think that's one of the biggest things when we talk about the returning production is that, yeah, obviously you want to return as much production as possible, but some of the production that you aren't returning wasn't good production. Some of the production that you are returning wasn't good production, but hopefully those guys will be depth or improve or whatever, maybe it's a young team, right? But I think that when you look at guys like the main two that caused a stir with Florida Gators fans when they hit the portal, Princely Monmielen, Trevor Etienne. And sure, Florida Gators fans can chalk up reasons for that. Trevor Etienne, do I want to be running back 2 on a losing team? I don't know. But you weren't running back 1, right? And sure, they weren't winning. He had his hand in that. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that he wasn't playing because he was a bad pass protector. He is one of the worst pass protectors that I've ever seen. I will say that. Horrendous. Which that's like the Saquon Barkley syndrome of like, I don't have to be a good pass protector. I'm dynamic with the ball in my hands. And sure, some coaches aren't going to care about that. But that's clearly not what happened in Gainesville, right? So Trevor Etienne left. We can chalk up, I don't want someone on here that gets a large portion of the carries and doesn't want to be here, right? Because with Trevor Etienne, honestly, it was probably a pretty good situation because you get your carries, you're not getting too much wear and tear, you're getting your touches though, like you're putting out good film. NFL teams are going to see that. They're not going to go, oh, he wasn't running back 1. Because NFL teams very rarely have a true, legitimate running back 1. They go, we're going to run you 60% of the carries. It just doesn't happen a ton anymore. It's just not modern football. And so go ahead, get your carries, get your wins. Go ahead, have fun. But personally, I'm not shaken up about Etienne leaving. Princely Mondial is someone that I'm still a very big fan of. And I know that that's a controversial opinion to have for Florida Gators fans in 2024 now. But I was a fan of his before the 2023 season, before the 2022 season. And I think he's a damn good football player. And he went to Ole Miss. And I get it, Twitter fingers and he and Lane are a match made in heaven with the Twitter fingers. But like when it comes down to it, the main thing for me that stands out with Princely specifically is that you had the chance to go to the NFL, and I don't care. Like I've seen people go, "Oh yeah, you got a 5th round grade back." No, the hell he didn't. I can tell you that. I've spoken to multiple NFL personnel members that have gone, "Yeah, that's a really good football player. Like he's really good." 2022 when he was rotational, they were like, "He's the best player on that team." Javon Dexter in the 2nd round, and I had NFL scouts tell me Princely's the best player on the team on that defense. Okay. Last year, I know that there were a lot of complaints and a lot of faults, and I'm not saying he's flawless. Don't get me wrong. But what bothers me is that Princely had a decision. Stay in Florida for 1 more year, go to the NFL and be a day 2 pick. And day 2 is a damn good range to go. So stay in Florida for another year, go to the NFL, be a day 2 pick, or transfer. Try to get yourself into day 1 definitively, because there was still a chance that he would have gone in the back half of that 1st round. Okay. So he had the choice. And what drives me crazy is that he went, I'm not going to the NFL, but I'm not staying in Florida. And Princely's not the first player that we heard that about with, I'm not going to the NFL, but I'm not staying. Like it was Anthony Richardson did an interview like last week. And it was like, yeah, last week or 2 weeks ago. I forgot who it was. It might have been with Pat McAfee, if I'm not mistaken, where he was just like, I knew I wasn't coming back to Florida. It was either NFL or I was hitting the portal. Like that's happened a couple of times now in recent years. That drives me crazy. That does, I'm not going to lie, that does diminish my confidence a little bit in the coaching staff and what they're doing. And I know that there's been changes in the coaching staff. There have, and they've made those changes. That's one of the reasons for optimism is that they made those changes. We talked about this during portal season. I spoke to a player that hit the portal. Wasn't Princely, wasn't Etienne. So rule those out. Go ahead. Wasn't Richie Leonard. Okay. Because I know I've said I'm a fan of Richie. I think that he's better than people give him credit for. But I spoke to a player that hit the portal that told me I'm leaving because I'm not being developed properly. Come on. Like that's a frustrating thing to see, right? Like players leaving because they don't feel like they're being developed. There's reasons to not be like, oh yeah, I'm all in on this. There's legitimate reasons to not be all in on the program. It's frustrating. It's just frustrating. And you've lost key players. And again, you're replacing those key players. Obviously, you have to replace everybody, but you've lost key players. You're replacing them. And as we say on this show, Not everybody's going to reach those expectations. Some will probably exceed them, but not everybody's going to reach those expectations. And I think that's a good reason for people to be pessimistic. But of course, you had to address those players, right? Those losses, right? To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are talking about more of those holes left, but more so about how you address them, right? The offensive line last year was, I get mad thinking about it, okay? And I'm not talking specifically about Damian George. No, I've said before, I think that there were 2 players last year that played acceptable, and it was Jake Slaughter and Richie Leonard on the offensive line. Okay? I said there were 2 players. Those are the 2. And I stand on it. I'm not going to change it just because Richie left. I'm not going to change it just because a bunch of Florida Gators fans hate him. I said that. I'm standing on it. Simple as that. I don't think he was awesome, by the way, but acceptable. That's it. That's the bar that I'm setting. I think Jake Slaughter was very good, especially considering the expectations. Amazing. Because I think he was very good for any center. But considering he was expected to be the backup and had to kind of get forced into the starting spot there, fantastic. Richie, I think, was acceptable. Austin Barber, I understand he was hurt. When it comes time to whether or not you were hurt, I don't care. You weren't playing well. If the reasoning is that you were hurt, that's fine. It doesn't change that you didn't play well. Congratulations. You get the hell yeah, he's got grit, but you still played poorly when you were out there. Okay? So offensive line was bad. Damian George was horrible at right tackle. Micah Mizuka just, I stand on whatever shoulder injury the Florida staff found out in spring, wrecked him. Because you look at the Baylor film, he's genuinely good at guard at Baylor. And it's not just flipping from left guard to right guard. It's not a seamless transition, but it's not as hard. It's not as hard to go from left guard to right guard as opposed to or compared to left tackle to right tackle. Like it's not as dramatic a difference there. And so Micah, his technique just fell apart from Baylor to Florida. I don't think it was coached out of him. I think that he had that shoulder injury and it completely destroyed his technique with his hands. And he tried to overcompensate with his legs, and it was just a mess. Okay. But offensive line was horrible. And they addressed it with the portal, moving guys around positionally, high school guys from previous years. But they did that last season when they lost a lot of their portal, or lost a lot of their offensive line from 2022. And so this is one of those areas where I go, on paper, you address the hole. On paper, you address your need, you address your weakness. I can't just go, oh yeah, it's good now though. Like I don't do that. I can't. I say it'll be better than last year because I don't know how you can get worse from last year. So I say the offensive line will be better from last year. I don't know if they'll be good. You could still be below average. Your offensive line was dog, you know what, last year. I don't know if it'll be good, but better than last year. But that still doesn't give me confidence. Like, I don't like to go, oh yeah, you're better than horrible. Super confident in that. Like, come on now. There's still reason to be pessimistic. You play a damn good schedule this year. You're going to face a lot of good pass rushers this year. There's reasons to be pessimistic about things. You're skeptical, if that's a better word for you. There's reasons for it. I think the offensive line is one of them. You addressed it, but you addressed it last year too, and it didn't work. Didn't go well, right? From 2022 to 2023, you lost who? Both your starting tackles, both your starting guards, and you brought Kingsley Eguakin back. And then in 2023, Kingsley got hurt right before the season. And the rest of the team kind of underwhelmed. So you're addressing a lot of change in the offensive line, sure. But you did it last year, so there's reasons to be pessimistic there. The secondary was horrible last year. And yes, a lot of that was on coaching. We know Corey Raymond kind of just packed it in and called it a day. Austin Armstrong was working with the safeties a lot, which is something that he'd never done in a full-time capacity before. It was more linebackers before then. But as far as addressing the holes, the only position that you truly addressed for 2024 is safety. I don't think that you really, for 2024, addressed corner much. In high school recruiting, you brought in Teddy Foster and Jameer Grimsley. I know Jameer Grimsley's technically portal. I don't care. He was on Alabama for a cup of tea and then left, so I don't care about that. So you brought in Jameer Grimsley and Teddy Foster. Portal, you brought in Cormani McLean as a preferred walk-on that I don't think will play much. Unless he's taking significant strides from his 2023 film at Colorado. He wasn't good at Colorado. You can go back and check the tape when Cormani was being recruited and when he decommitted from Miami and all that stuff. I said, he's very raw. Because he is. He wasn't this technically sound kid. He was just 6'3", fast as hell, athletic, long, stuff you can't teach, and he needed a lot of technical work. He did not get that technical development at Colorado. Okay? Didn't get it. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to be playing much in 2024. So I don't think that Florida really addressed corner in 2024. You addressed the secondary, and safety wasn't great last year. We know, two true freshmen played most of the snaps there. It's not a great thing to do. Like, safety's a hard position to play. You got to have a high football IQ to play it well. Freshmen typically don't have that. So I think that when it comes time to you address your needs, sure. But Florida Gators fans have plenty of reason to be skeptical about that because you addressed needs last year and not all of them worked out. I do think they had a better process this year. Sure. But again, there's still reasons to be skeptical about it. I'm not as skeptical about addressed holes from last year. I'm not like the offensive line. Again, I know that it's going to be better from last year. I don't know how good it's going to be. I know it's going to be better. And I have a bit more confidence that they nailed the evaluations. I like both Devin Manuel and Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Big fan of Jake Slaughter and Rod Kearney. Big fan of Najee Harris. I think Damian George can be at least average or better at right guard. Corner, it's about a lot of the youth developing. Like when you talk about those, yeah, I think I feel better about them, but there's still reasons to be skeptical for those that are pessimistic about the Florida Gators in 2024. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reps in the podcast. We will be back at the absolute latest tomorrow, but if Joshua Moore commits today, which we don't have a time yet, just we know it's supposed to be today. If he commits, we will be going live for that. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I will see you all next time.